Hello everyone, Jeremy here, and this is the Sony QX10, one of two new so-called lens cameras that just came out recently. You probably heard about this one or its more expensive brother, the QX100, on all the blogs and tech sites and all that stuff. But if you haven't heard about this at all, I'm just give you a brief synopsis about what this device is and how it came to be. So basically, Sony saw how many people were taking lots of pictures with their smartphones instead of using traditional point and shoot cameras. And things were that way for a few reasons. One reason is because smartphones are with us all the time. They fit really easily into our pockets, to our purses, handbags, what have you, and they're always connected to the internet. So we can share those pictures to our social networks and email and send them as text messages practically wherever we are. For a lot of us, it's the camera that's with us all the time. So it's the camera that we tend to use the most. So Sony thought, why not cater to those people who love taking pictures with their smartphones and give them a little bit more. Give them a device that acts as their smartphone camera without actually being inside their smartphone and without being limited to all the things that smartphone cameras are typically limited to due to their smaller sensors and their inability to offer optical zoom, things that are just always going to be a problem with phones, especially since we want them to be thinner and thinner and thinner all the time. So that's where these cameras came into play. This particular model, the QX10, sells for $249, and it has the same lens and the same sensor that's on the Sony WX200 point and shoot camera. And the more expensive lens camera, the QX100, is based on the same sensor and the same lens that's found in the Sony RX100 Mark II, which is a camera that sells for over $700, and as it is seen as being the best point and shoot camera ever made. So those are some little facts for you right here. So let's go over this device here. It comes in two colors, white and black. I got the white one with the gold trim because that's what's cool nowadays, right? So going over the camera, we can just go over the buttons real quick. This is the zoom toggle switch here. It has a 10 times optical zoom, so when you press this knob up towards the T, that's the telephoto end, that's you zooming out, and when you press it down towards the W, that's the wide end. So if you're curious on what the actual zoom range is, what the focal length is with this particular lens, if you compare it to a full frame DSLR, the focal length on the wide end is about 27.5 millimeters, and then on the telephoto end, it's about 250 millimeters. So that's a good zoom range for a camera of this size, because pretty much that's all that a regular person is ever really going to need. So this little circular button right here is the shutter. Works just like any other shutter on a camera. Have press to focus, fully press to actually take the picture. Over here on the bottom is the utility port, which houses your micro USB charging port, where you can use to charge the device. It does come with the USB cable. Flipping it over to the back, this is actually a separate attachment from the actual camera. These are clips that you can use to clip onto the back of your smartphone. I'll show you how you can do that in a minute. And this comes off just like a lens on a DSLR or mirrorless camera would come off. You take this and you kind of press it towards your hand, and then you give it a little twist and it comes right off. Now this is the battery door on this camera, and you know, like I say, this battery door here, it really worries me because I kind of feel like it's just going to come flopping off. You see, it's just connected. It seems to be quite thin with this piece of metal, strip of metal or whatever, and it's just very unnerving, and I have to be really careful with that. Over here on the top is the micro USB card. This is how small it is. This is the type of card that you need if you want to actually save videos to the card, because You can transfer your photos to your smartphone, but if you want to shoot video, it has to go on the card. So that's the card there. And then that is the battery. So we're just going to put the battery door back on. Pray we don't break it. And on the other side of the device, that's the battery indicator. This is the only screen, I guess you can say, that you'll get on this entire camera. It's just a little battery indicator. It has the bars on it, just like your smartphone does. And when you want to put this back onto the camera, what you have to do is just make sure that the camera is right side up, like this. And then also make sure that this is right side up. And you just put it in and give it a nice turn. And it clicks into place, and then you are good to go. So connecting this to your smartphone is pretty simple as far as physically connecting it, but when you want your phone to interact with this camera so that you can use it as a viewfinder and take pictures, it differs depending on what kind of device that you have. So if you have an Android device that has an NFC chip in it, an NFC is just basically a form of technology that allows two devices to touch each other, and when it does that, it exchanges information electronically. So that's the kind of like the one-touch way of connecting this camera to your phone. Or if you don't have NFC, or if you have an iPhone like I do, this camera puts out its own Wi-Fi signal, and there is a password on the battery door, and there's a password on in the instruction book. So you connect to it just like you're connecting to your home internet connection. You put in that password and you will be good to go. So I am going to clip this onto my iPhone right now so you can see how that's done. So you take these two off, or you flip them up like that, and don't worry about it. You're not going to hurt the phone by doing this. I'm going to use my left hand because I'm left-handed. You're not going to hurt the phone by doing this, even though I have a case on here, so it's really not going to hurt it. So all I have to do is kind of like just put this on like this, and just kind of lift it up far enough so that it can completely clip on the phone. And as you can see, it ain't going nowhere. It may be a little wobbly, but it's not going anywhere. And it's always recommended that you use a lanyard just in case if you drop this, you do not drop the camera and the phone, and you end up being out of hundreds of dollars and stuff. So yeah, move the lanyard out the way. And this is what it looks like when it's connected to your device. And it kind of looks like a camera in its own right, right? And let me just go about turning this on. So I'm going to turn this on. We're going to slide to unlock. And I need to connect to the phone's, to the camera's Wi-Fi network. So let me just see if I can get a little bit more focus in from here. So we are going to go to the settings, and we need to connect to the proper Wi-Fi network. But before we do that, we actually have to turn on, the camera. So let's turn that on. I don't think I pressed it. Here we go. The lens comes out, and then we're going to see that Wi-Fi network there. I click on that, wait for it to say, you are connected. So I am connected. Then I'm going to go to the Play Memories mobile application, which is currently the only app that you can use to connect the camera to your phone, and away you go. So as you can see, I'm just sort of moving around here with the lens attached to the camera. See, and here's the other thing that you can do. You can just take this off of the camera. It does not need to be connected at all. And you can kind of just use this. You can just use this as a viewfinder so you can see what the camera sees. So I'm going to bring in, I have this sitting right here. This is from the new Mega Bloks Call of Duty sets that I've also am reviewing right now. And I'm going to have the phone right here, so as you see, as you move the camera around, you are getting different angles. So since it's connected to my phone through his Wi-Fi connection, I can just move this around. And when I want to actually take a picture of this, I can either press the shutter button on the phone or the shutter button on the camera. So I'm just going to press the shutter button on the phone. And it gives you a low resolution preview image, or the low resolution final image that you just captured. However, the final picture is not going to be 2 megapixels. I mean, unless you want it to. But you can go into the settings here. Let me just bring up the phone again. You can go into the settings and you can you can select what your still image size is going to be. You know, I have it at the full 18 megapixels, but you can also have it be as low as 2 megapixels if you want to do it that way. If you want to take video, all you have to do is press this mode button here, and then there is a movie mode. But like I said, all the video records to the camera and not to the phone. So that's something to be aware of there. Another thing that you need to know if you want to get this particular model is that here are the 3 modes that you have access to: intelligent auto, superior auto, and program auto. So there really are no manual modes with this camera. You do not have shutter priority. You do not have aperture priority. You can't manually select your ISO either. Sony just wants you to trust the camera. Kind of like how you trust the chemistry and respect the chemistry, you have to trust and respect the camera to do its thing. Now, I know that's not something that a lot of people actually want to do, and it's very understandable. But unless Sony updates the Play Memory mobile software to allow you to have some manual control over your cameras, this is what you're going to be stuck with. Okay, so I mentioned that you can't control the ISO. You can't control it as far as increments. ISO 100, 200, 400, 800, 1000, 1200, whatever increments, a particular camera may offer you. But you can limit the you can limit the sensitivity range through the various modes. So if you keep it on intelligent auto, that means the camera is automatically going to select an ISO between 100 and 3200 based on what it thinks is the best. If you use superior auto, you'll have a range of ISO 100 to ISO 12800. And let me tell you, you do not want it to pick ISO 12800. I don't care if you've got one of the best DSLRs out there, you don't want to do 12800 because your image is going to be really noisy and it's not going to look that good, period. Or you can use program auto, which limits your ISO between 100 and 1600. And that's typically the mode that I choose because I would like as little noise as possible, and I don't want the camera choosing ISO 3200 when 1600 will do, especially if I'm on a tripod. But of course you can't tell the camera, hey, I'm on a tripod, give me ISO 100 and just use a slow shutter speed. You cannot do that with this camera. So yeah, you also get control over some white balance modes, auto, daylight, shade, fluorescent, fluorescent 2, fluorescent 3, incandescent. There's really only the controls that you have over this camera. The only controls that you have over it. So right now I think I'm just about done talking, but I did go out and I did shoot some photos with this camera and a little brief introduction video. And my whole goal was to sort of unscientifically show some comparisons between the images taken with this camera and some images taken with the iPhone 5. So when I took these pictures, I basically took them with the camera. It was mounted onto the phone, so I took them with the camera, and then I switched over to the default camera app, and I took another picture of the same thing, trying to stay in the same position I was with the first image. So I guess it's not a completely controlled test, but I did think it was good enough The light didn't really change in between. It took me to switch between the two different apps to take the picture, but hang out right here and take a look just a few of these pictures, sample images that I took with this camera and the iPhone 5 from earlier today.
Hey everybody, Jeremy here, and I just wanted to test out the video capabilities of the Sony QX10, so I'm just going to take a little walk around. I got my iPhone right there, and it's just sort of acting as the viewfinder for me as I walk and do this. I don't believe I'm covering up the microphone, but if I am, apologies. So as I do this walk around, I'm going to take some pictures as I go, and I'm going to put those pictures in the video along with the comparison photos from the iPhone 5's native camera. So without further ado, let's get this thing started.
So yeah, those were the sample pictures that I took earlier today comparing this camera, the QX10, to the iPhone 5, and although it wasn't an exact science, I think it gets the point across that, yeah, this camera is better. Is it better by a huge margin? No, not really. But you can tell that in those pictures, the colors of the images produced by the QX10 were better than that of the iPhone 5. Things just looked a little more crisp. And it's not because this is some type of new technology or it's the iPhone 5's camera is not as good as we thought it was. No, not at all. It's just that the QX10 is a camera that was built to be a camera, whereas the iPhone 5 or any other type of smartphone camera, it was made to be a smartphone with a camera. The camera was not the focal point. It may be an issue that they bring up in marketing. They can say like, oh yeah, we've got this camera, our camera does this, our camera does that, but the phone was not designed to be a camera. And whenever the camera is not put into the foreground, it's not going to hold up next to a dedicated camera. Much like how DSLR's video mode falls behind in comparison to a camcorder of a similar price. Camcorder is meant to take video. It's going to do good at video, but not good at still pictures. And then the DSLR is the complete opposite. So there's that. So this lens in the hands, it's light. It does feel a little cheap, actually. It does not feel like a regular camera lens from either a mirrorless camera or a DSLR. It doesn't have that weight to it. It doesn't have that sturdiness to it. As you saw, the battery compartment and the compartment that houses the micro USB port, it's all flippity, flappity, plasticky, and to me, it does feel like it can be a little fragile. So you want to be careful with this lens, with this camera. So based on my first impressions, would I recommend you go out and buy this right now? Well, there's a couple things about that. One, you have to consider the software. Play Memories Mobile, it's not good software. And at this time, it's the only way that you can actually use your smartphone or tablet as a viewfinder with this camera. If you're on iOS, it gets even worse. You didn't see it, but the software locks up a lot on iOS. It freezes, you have to exit the app, you have to go back in. At one point I had to turn the camera off and turn it back on and let it connect again. Sony never updated it to iOS 7 and it shows. It's not stable. And they can also update the app to give us a little more features. I mean, at the very least, let us control the ISO. So perhaps waiting for a firmware update if that or software update if that ever happens, and then maybe see if the third-party support comes around, see what Camera 360 that app is going to support this camera, and that update's going to be out in the middle of October. See what they can bring to the table, because this is the type of thing that can get better through software. It's a shame it wasn't like that right out the gate. So if you are a serious photographer and if you want to use this for anything serious, then it's probably not for you, because you just don't have the amount of control that you would over a typical camera. Even if you're not a pro and you're just an enthusiast, if you want more control, this is not going to give you the kind of control that you likely want. But if you're like me, and you like taking pictures, and you're also a tech guy, so you want the latest stuff and you just want to see what the heck is this lens camera thingy all about, and $250 is not enough to strain your budget significantly, then just to give it a shot, maybe. But I think at this point it's really more of a novelty item. It seems to be a pretty good novelty item, but it's so held back by the software limitations that it really hurts the product overall in the long run. Or not in the long run, in the short run, it hurts the product. It makes it seem like something that is truly is a first generation project or product, and maybe you should sit this one out. But if they really help out that software and bring it up to the standard of regular point and shoots like this is based off of, then it will be more of a recommendation. Can't speak on the RX 100 because I have not tried it. I have not tested it in any way. But even that camera doesn't give you all the bells and whistles with the software like you would expect a $500 camera to have. It doesn't shoot RAW either. And for $500, a camera that doesn't shoot RAW, especially if the RX 100 Mark II did shoot RAW. So the fact that our QX100 doesn't, you're stripping out the price, but at the same time, $500 is a lot of money, and you want a little bit more for that. So yeah, those are just my basic general impressions of this camera. I might do more on it as I get more time with it and check out some more of its features and quirks, and if there's an update of any kind of see how that changes things. But right now, I'm pretty lukewarm on it. More towards warm than I am cold, but time will tell if that shifts or not. So thanks for watching this pretty long video. I appreciate it. Until next time, I'm Jeremy, and I'll see you later.